In the middle, or okay?
Sorry.
Well, good afternoon, CPAC. It's my pleasure. My name is Bryan Bernys. I'm the Vice President of Campus Programs at the Leadership Institute to welcome you all to this panel today. I think we've got a very interesting panel and a very interesting topic here. Our four guest panelists have a varying degree of backgrounds and different aspects they can bring to this topic. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to introduce them, let them each give you a couple of minutes on their thoughts on the topic, and then we're going to get right into it. And I think this panel is especially interesting on what trigger warnings, safe spaces, and the current nanny state of the college campus and what we can do to protect the snowflake generation from themselves. So my first guest, the panelist here, is Dr. Matthew Spalding. Matthew Spalding is the Associate Vice President and Dean of Educational Programs at Hillsdale College here in Washington, D.C. He is also the best-selling author of We Still Hold These Truths. And in addition to his job, he has also taught at Hillsdale College as well as George Mason University and Catholic University. Matt?
Great. Great to be with you. I hope some of the Hillsdale students are still here. I can hear them. There we go. Hillsdale, we don't really believe in all this nonsense. We're pretty much microaggressions all the time. And we don't have any trigger warnings. We believe that one goes to college to learn something. The problem with all this today is that people aren't learning anything. This is not the educational project. I think what we're seeing is a complete playing out, a devolution, if you will, of the intellectual rot of the modern academy. It has nothing to say. This is what happens when you turn, going back to the 1960s and prior to that, to absolute moral relativism. They don't have no sense of their own purpose, no sense of their own mission, and now they're devouring themselves. And so we see these absurdities, absolute absurdities of political correctness on the campus. What I fear now is it's becoming connected to not only the campus administration, which has the power to enforce speech codes, but also more and more the federal government through Title IX and things like that. This is where liberalism is going, to a kind of a soft intellectual despotism that we're seeing on a lot of our big college campuses.
And our next head, Madison Gesiotto. Madison is a Washington Times columnist and a conservative commentator who appears frequently on Fox News. She was also a regional press secretary for President Trump's inauguration, as well as a national surrogate. Madison is in her final semester of law school at Ohio State University and formerly served as the staff editor for the Ohio State Journal of Criminal Law. In addition to her television writing work, Madison is also an athlete, a beauty queen. In 2014, she captured the coveted title of Miss Ohio USA. So Madison, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be with everybody today and to be here at CPAC with my fellow panelists. I want to give a quick thank you to Matt and Mercedes Schlapp, who have just been amazing. They've put together just another incredible CPAC, and they've really been amazing role models to me and so many other people in this room. So thank you to them. Now, my family immigrated here less than 100 years ago. They came to chase the American dream. They moved across land and sea to experience the unparalleled freedoms of the United States of America, a country where every one of us is guaranteed the right to free speech and freedom of religion. But less than 100 years later, to their dismay, and the dismay of so many of you in this room, free speech has practically been, what I would say, thrown out the window on college campuses. At Ohio State's law school campus, I myself was the target of attacks for writing a column in the Washington Times about an issue that I feel is very important in today's society, and that's abortion within the Black community. I was threatened, I was harassed, but I didn't back down. And I know I'm not the only one in the room who's been there. I know so many of you, like me, have dealt with this, or have seen your children, grandchildren, friends, or family members deal with this on their campuses. You've seen the snowflakes, and you've seen the negative effects that safe spaces have on college campuses today. But the reality remains that the future of conservatism is at stake, the future of our nation is at stake, and our future leaders will not be produced from safe spaces. In the real world, there are no safe spaces, which is why I think it's so important that we have young conservatives here today. And, on this stage over the past 3 days and in this audience, I've seen the faces of our future leaders. And these young conservatives are people who are not afraid to voice their opinions. And they refuse to be stifled by the unwillingness of others to accept beliefs, behaviors, or views different from their own. And as we continue to see the troubling trends of liberal administrations, overly sensitive, what we like to call snowflakes on campuses and safe spaces, I think it's very important that we continue to not back down and to not react based on our emotions. The most important thing I think young conservatives can be doing is stepping up and continuing to stand up for what's right and what's moral, for speaking truth, and for refusing to back down. Thank you guys again so much for coming, and I'm so glad to be with you.
And our next panelist, Amanda Owens, is the founder of Future Female Leaders, America's leading social movement for conservative women. Future Female Leaders, often affectionately known as FFL, has built a community of hundreds of thousands of women that support and empower each other on their college campuses. Amanda?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Can we give a round of applause to CPAC and the ACU? So I'm so excited to be here to share what our organization does on college campuses in my journey. I started Future Female Leaders in my college dorm room, and it started as an anonymous Twitter account. And I started that because I was very involved in the 2012 election, supported Mitt Romney passionately, and I think I started getting the nickname "that conservative girl" on campus, and I was getting unfriended on Facebook, I was getting names thrown at me, and I was still a young girl trying to grow her confidence and grow, professionally and personally. And so I found myself just wanting an outlet to get my ideas out there. And so I created that account, and I tweeted about politics, I tweeted about the 2012 election, and I also talked about, the highs and lows of being a young conservative woman on campus. And it really resonated with a lot of women. We grew our social media very quickly, and we found that we were hitting a niche of girls that felt like their views were not being represented on college campus. Women centers were not representing them because they were conservative. And I see that there is so much, hatred and unacceptance of conservatives, all conservatives, but especially conservative women. Here at Future Female Leaders, we have a motto that says, being a conservative woman can be hard, but we try to make it easier. So I'm so excited to talk to you guys today about what we're doing on college campuses to try to bring a platform to conservative women and conservatives all across, all identities.
Thank you, Amanda. Our final panelist, Lawrence Jones, is an author, a conservative radio show host, and he also is a contributor and guest host on the Dana Lash's show on TheBlaze. Lawrence Jones.
Those that value freedom but refuse to agitate and hate agitation are just like men who want to have crops, but refuse to plow the ground. Those were the words of Frederick Douglass. And I'm here to tell you guys, in the words of Andrew Breitbart, freedom does not care about your feelings. And just because many on the left sent their kids to school without hurting their feelings, it is not our job to coddle their feelings. And if we don't stop, I was on MSNBC earlier today, and they got upset and offended because I said Obama took care of the Latinos but not the black community. And they were like, MSNBC, why do you have them on and all this? And I saw my conservative friends saying, how could they say that about you? How can they say that about a black man? How could you let it? I'm just like, guys, just stop. I'm not a snowflake, okay? Because like Frederick Douglass, I can fight. Like Booker T. Washington, I can build, and just like Harriet Tubman, if you try to cross me, I will defend myself. So I am honored to be on this panel. I hope that the young people that are in this crowd today leave more inspired than ever to take on not only the students on the campuses, but the liberal professors that try to target us, scare us, kick us off of campus. We are more stronger than ever, and we're coming back after CPAC with a nice message for them. Come and take it.
All right, guys. So how this town hall panel is gonna work is we're actually gonna take questions from you. So there's 2 microphones over there as well as on Facebook and Twitter. But to get us started off there, in my role at the Leadership Institute, working with college students, conservative across the country, as well as on campus reform, this is something we hear about all day long. These ridiculous trigger warnings, microaggressions, safe spaces. And the question becomes, what are we doing for the next generation of leaders? I mean, one can only imagine had this existed when Elizabeth Warren went to college, we'd probably have a trigger warning filed every day in the US Senate. So the question is for each one of you guys, what can these young conservatives out here in the audience today do to make a difference on their campus? And what should they do immediately when they leave here CPAC today on Monday morning when they get back to the college campus? And you want to go ahead and start us off?
I'll take it. Organize. One thing, we as conservatives, we have to have a real conversation with ourselves. We do a poor job in organizing. And part of the problem is because sometimes we become babies and we allow ourselves to be bullied on these campuses. You have a right to be on campus, especially if you're paying all that damn money. And so, if they try to kick you off campus, go to the coffee shop down the street. If they try to scare you, make sure that you pass campus carry on the campus. That way when they try to come for you, you can raise your gun up and say, back down. It's about organizing. And I know that may make some people uncomfortable, but it's the truth. It's the truth. They shut us down on every single campus. Yes, we're going to have some controversial figures, but what do they have? So I encourage us to fight.
Okay.
And I think going along with what he's saying, I mean, when we look at college students today, for every one student who is standing up and trying to organize and speaking out, there's probably 10 more that have been silenced by what's going on. And so continuing to reach out to these students and get them involved and make sure that they realize, this is just the beginning for us. Conservatives are the future of this country. They're the future of, they're our future leaders. And so I think they need to continue to reach out to those students who have dealt with these situations and haven't received the support that they deserve from their administrations and their professors.
Okay, let's go to the first question here from the audience.
Hi, my name's Evan Thayer from New York, although I live in the San Francisco Bay Area now. Is the attack on free speech on college campuses a failure of institutions, or is it a failure of parenting and families?
Matt, you want to?
That's, I suppose in a certain sense it's a failure of all of the above. I think what we're seeing on campuses now and this intolerance from the left naturally comes out of where the left has been for some time. It's been going this way. And they gave up a long time ago on the idea that there's some aspect of truth or something that education is meant to be there for in the first place. Once they've done that, once they believe that all truths are relative, and once a culture accepts that, and the administration starts working with those students and listening to them, you now have radical tenured leftists on the faculty, and now the administrations of the colleges, which in the 60s were opposed to this, are cooperative. You put all this together, it naturally goes in this direction. This has been a long time coming. This has been going on for some time. The culture is moving, the media is moving in this direction. That makes it all the more important for conservatives on campus to work together, to organize, to find and support faculty that are friendly to your arguments on campus, and work with them. There aren't that many of us, but keep in mind, we are not merely protecting our free speech, our ability to make arguments, but we're preserving something that the modern academy has given up on, namely defending Western civilization and what it stands for. If we're not going to do that, who is going to do that?
Okay, let's take our next question over here.
My name is Bernys. I'm from what I like to call the occupied South in Bethesda, Maryland. I'm a senior in high school, and I will be attending Texas A&M in the fall. While this may, thank you. While this may be a more conservative university, what kind of resistance can I expect from liberal staff and liberal students, and how do I handle that at the college level?
Madison, maybe you as a current student?
Sure. First of all, congratulations. I have a younger sister starting college in the fall as well. I think one of the first things you have to keep in mind is you're going to receive a lot of, I would say, unfair treatment in the classroom. And this is something I've seen at the law school, and I've seen a lot of other people talk about at their universities at the undergrad level. And so when you're in class and you're going through these types of situations, it can be really difficult, but you can't change what you're doing. You can't stop raising your hand because one time a professor tries to shut you down, because at the end of the day, that's how they win, right? So you need to continue to, like I said before, you need to speak up for what's right and what's moral. You need to continue to speak truth, and that can be really difficult. So I think that's the number one thing you need to do, and one thing I advocate a lot of students to do as well is, most of the time it's going to be conservatives and religious students that are going to be discriminated against. But if you see a liberal student that has their free speech rights stifled, that's the first time I'll stand up as well. I don't care if I agree with anything they're saying. I don't have to agree with one thing they ever say, but I agree with their right to say it, and that's what we have to remember. That's what we're fighting for, and that's what we want them to do for us. So we need to set that example by doing that for them as well if you do encounter a situation like that in a more conservative class that you may have at Texas.
Yeah. I don't want to forget about our audience out there on social media, so do we have a question from social media?
Alana Lee B. would like to know, what would you say to conservatives or those who claim conservatives are insensitive by fighting against safe spaces and trigger warnings?
Fake news.
Amanda, do you want to take this one?
I want to say thank you, Alana, for the great question. I think that's important. We want to make sure that we're representing, free speech, but we also want to maintain a positive message of conservatism, and I think that's really important. That's what my organization does, and I think that that's how we gain, independence and, can get some people converted get them seeing the light from Democrats over to Republicans, and, just having and talking to them in a way that resonates with them, and get personal. Share personal stories as to why you're a conservative. When you humanize yourself, it becomes a lot harder to tear you down and call you names. So get personal with them, share personal stories, and humanize yourself, because we're not monsters like they claim us to be.
All right, let's go to our next question from the audience.
Is this working? Okay. Hi, my name is Fuad Farouk, and I'm a college student going to Stony Brook University in Long Island. My question is, as a conservative of color, I've heard many insults claiming that you can't be a conservative and a person of color. And typically, when insults get thrown around, the discussion ends. How do you keep a discussion going and, I guess, try to change their point of view from there?
First of all, I'm proud to be chocolate, so that's just the first thing. I love my people, okay? And this whole notion that, you gotta fit this, do they realize what black folks were originally? They freed the slaves. We were the first in Congress. Those were black folks. Black folks founded the Republican Party of Texas and are still active in Texas. My people have been fighting way too long to allow people on college campuses to tell us how to eat, how to think, and which safe space to be on. The safest space for you is at home, okay? If you want to, I'm not against safe spaces. Go home. This is the real world. There is no safe space but your home. That's all you got. Yeah.
All right, we got one more question from the audience over here.
Oh, hi, I'm Katie Danforth. I go to DePaul University in Lincoln Park, Illinois. And my question is on social justice indoctrination in high schools. And my example is New Trier University in Winnetka, Illinois. I know I read in the Wall Street Journal last weekend that they're going to have an event on February 20th that's called Today's Struggle for Racial Civil Rights. And I was wondering if there's ways to combat that, in a sense that they're not really inviting any civil rights speakers, and I know parents are very frustrated about that. So I wonder if you had any advice for them.
Homeschool. Look, the objective of progressive education was to take over the educational system in the United States, and we see it going on in the college, but it's much more decadent in many ways at the high school level, especially on things like social justice or education, the types of progressive education they want to shape. And it's extremely destructive, because the problem we face is that if people become inured to this and accepting to it, by the time they get to college, when you're supposed to be liberating the mind and opening it to the great ideas that we have to teach, you've really destroyed the whole project. This is why how we have education reform and how we get government out of the way and empower parents at this high school level especially to control their education is absolutely key, because otherwise the modern state is going to continue down this path. And that's what's driving a lot of this, is the politics behind it and the political correctness of the modern government.
So you guys, we've talked about what the students can do. They can organize, and things like that and fight back. But what can they do more specifically? And should the parents get involved? Because we're not just talking about this happening at small little private schools. This is happening at major state schools that are funded by all of your taxpayer dollars. At what point does the general citizenry need to get in and fight back, and try to challenge some of these presidents of university and the border regions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Madison.
Ladies first. I think one of the biggest things that I noticed was very helpful on my campus was counteracting by holding your own events, right? Getting people in your community. It doesn't just have to be students. I reached out to people within the pro-life community with my issue specifically. So I write the column talking about the statistics of abortion in the Black community. I received threats for people to beat me up. They said they wanted to rape me, so I know what it's like to want an abortion. They started holding bowling for abortion at the school. So it was a very difficult situation. And as I moved forward, I said, I can't sit back and just let this happen and let them do this. Even if I, get over it, I'm okay. I need to do something for this cause. And so I stepped forward. I reached out to pro-life groups in my community, and I held, my own events. I went out and spoke about this. I spoke with politicians in my state. Reach out to your local politicians. They can be very helpful, and hold these events, basically doing what they're doing for your cause.
Okay. Do you want real quick?
And especially as it relates to your social justice warrior, I think messaging is a key component when dealing with the left on this. And my big sister, she's somewhere out there, Sunny Johnson at Breitbart, does an excellent job in telling us how to defend ourselves. And it's important to realize that when the social justice warriors are talking about white supremacy, they're talking about institution racism. When we all say it doesn't exist, it's a problem. It exists in their progressive institutions. You guys own this. You created this, so don't come at us and talk about white privilege and progressive policies and that we need to be diverse when Hollywood is so white and you guys are always saying, why isn't it diversity there? So don't come at us. Your institutions founded this, so you guys own it.
All right, let's go back to the audience.
Hi, my name is Nicole Bean, and I'm the chairman of the DePaul College Republicans, same place as Katie, and we were recently named Fire's Worst School for Free Speech 2017. So how do you think that we can combat private institutions prohibiting free speech and speakers?
Amanda, you want to?
I think getting involved, like Madison said, getting involved community with like-minded groups. We are so blessed to have so many awesome groups in our community and on our campuses. I think there's something to be said for strength in numbers. Let your voice be heard and let's turn it into a roar. So let's, connect with your community, get involved with local politicians on the state level, and, just get a big crowd and let's let everyone know what's going on.
And you've probably taken the first step by contacting a great group like Fire or Alliance Defending Freedom to help you, fight back, as a student on your own campus against those policies.
Yeah, and can we be more unified? I know we had a tough primary, but it's over. We got a president now. It's time to unite and fight against the left. They always unify at the end. Y'all saw Bernys sell his soul at the end. So we can unify and get it done,
And even on a campus like yours, it's not about numbers. If you can't get the large numbers, of course, that's ideal. But even if you get 5 or 6 people together, at my law school, I started a student group with Concerned Women for America. I got 5 or 6 girls together. No, that's not a lot. The liberal organizations had way more, but we were able to make a difference. So get together who you can and make the most out of it. Just don't ever let them silence you.
Let me ask you all, too, do you think that, in the wake of the election, this is actually changing? There's a momentum to change this? Because we've seen a number of states, such as Arizona, Tennessee, North Carolina, in the state legislatures starting to take up bills to demand free speech on all public, and college campuses. Matt, do you want to?
Well, look, the Republicans control more state houses than they have ever in the past since, the 1920s. So they've got a lot of leverage. And I come back to my general point here. I think that free speech, as it's been presented, is extremely important. We should fight these battles precisely as you guys have laid them out. But we have to keep in mind this is a political battle of great import. When it comes to public campuses, the state legislatures need to use more leverage over them to impose more rules for true free speech. When it comes to private institutions, that's harder. How do you get leverage over them? Well, one thing you need to do is break up the monopoly they have and the complete economic model of higher education. It's absolutely corrupt. They're getting 30 and 40% of their budget from government. This can't go on that way. There's no pressure on them to change their ways. This is a much larger political problem than merely, although it's extremely important, than merely free speech. We must defend our free speech, but that's a defensive mood. We need to go on the offense and go after the academy. Large savings to the academy, especially these with huge endowments, and they're paying $60,000 for tuition and room. It's absolutely absurd. Until there's real pressure on them to allow for this kind of a discussion in some sort of way that allows for conservative voices, we're not going to see any change on those campuses.
Okay. One more question from the audience.
My name's Linda, and I'm from Houston. I want to object to one thing. You're talking about young conservatives. I'm 60, and I'm a graduate student at an unnamed university because I'm still there. 2 weeks ago, I just about got kicked out of my 3rd out of 9 classes for expressing conservative views. The first class, she tried to kick me out of the program because I said something politically incorrect. She apologized the next week because apparently I was right. The next time I objected to studies that were showing that conservatives were fat, ugly, and a whole bunch of other things, and I questioned the methodology. It was later shown that I was right, they were wrong, and never mind. And then 2 weeks ago, I objected to someone talking about the myth of welfare queens, and he just threatened to kick me out. I was in Massachusetts when Dukakis that was the only state he took, and I was one of the heads of the state college Republicans. So I'm tough and can take it and will continue to speak out. But I'm really concerned about the real young people. How are they going to speak up when I'm getting shut down like this? And I'm got a ton of guts and a lot of experience, but they don't.
You want to go?
And I'll start. I think, like I said before, they just can't back down, and it's so difficult. It's not easy by any means, but there's amazing organizations out there that will work with them, like FIRE, like Alliance Defending Freedom, like Concerned Women for America. All 3 of these organizations really stepped up and helped me. I mean, I had professors and students who were trying to get me to either resign or get kicked off from being a staff editor on the Law Journal at my law school, which they had no ability to do, but they tried anyways. And so they need to continue to reach out to these organizations, and I think we as people who are standing up can continue to do what we can to reach out to them to make them aware of them, because not all students are aware that these organizations exist or that they can do this.
I think, one thing you and any other student, no matter what your age is, can do is start holding these professors accountable. Record your professor, report that story to whether it's Campus Reform or the College Fix, and get that out there so everybody can see just what's going on in America's college classrooms. I think we have time for one last question, so we'll go here.
Yes, I love hearing about how, my name is Cheryl Howell, and I live in Fairfax County. And I love hearing about the importance of the younger generation, not that I'm against the older generation. But I got hooked in high school from my government teacher who demanded that everybody had to participate in the election process by joining either the Young Republicans or the Young Democrat Party and help campaign, because in Virginia there's always an election. So I really want, I talk about this a lot on RNC questionnaires everywhere. When I see young college Republicans, I'm like, you guys, I think, really need to get into the high schools and really start establishing young Republican clubs again. Our message is a winning message. Our message is not about color, it's not about age, it's about quality of life and our heritage, which embraces everybody. And the liberals have hijacked our message and are trying to define us. And we need to get back into the schools. Our future voters are in high school. And we need to get them equip them so that when they do get to college and they do have to deal with these professors, they can have the confidence to push back and have the tools to know who to contact on the administration. Because one thing the liberals like to do is repeat what they hear. But when you ask a liberal, why do you think that way, they can't answer the question.
I think that's more of a statement than a question, but but it's a great point made. I want to let each one of the panelists here have a final thought too, before we're up, time's up in this panel. So,
I'll talk about her question. I think that we have to take some responsibility as Republicans for this as well. I beat up on the liberals enough already. There was a point in time, my seasoned Republicans out there, where they used to tell us, hey, young people, wait your turn, wait your turn. In the meantime, the liberals were recruiting people that couldn't even vote yet to knock on doors. And then when we got our tails kicked, then we wanted the young people to be involved. It's our fault. And it's time for the grandparents and the mothers and fathers to take their kids and put them in front of the TV with them and explain to them what's going on.
I have a 10-year-old son, so he was here at CPAC on Thursday, missing school. So.
There you go. Amanda, final thoughts?
I started my organization, Future Female Leaders, because I felt alone on college campuses and I didn't know what to do, but I knew I wanted my voice to be heard. And I did the only thing I knew to do was to just get on social media and try to have a megaphone and try to speak for conservative principles. I think it's absolutely absurd that the professors are supposed to be leading by example and they are pushing safe spaces and trigger warnings and coddling our future leaders.
Madison?
I just want to make a quick comment about we're in an environment right now where we have a president of the United States who supports our movement. He supports our message. We control both the House and the Senate, and we control so many seats within our own states. So this is the time where we're really going to make the most difference as ever before. We need to come together. We need to unite. And like I said, we have that support from our amazing president, Donald J. Trump. He's going to do great things for us. So I think let's get behind him and let's use that momentum to make changes on our campuses and in our states.
Dr. Spalding?
Yeah, I think these all been great comments. It's been a great panel. I thank my panelists. But your point about high school education is absolutely correct. This is why Hillsdale College, among other things, is starting charter schools all over the country. Education is what it's all about. What we need is just better education, good education. My last thought with you would be to encourage you to keep in mind going to college is not about fighting between the left and the right. It's not about conservatism and liberalism. It's about learning. It's about good teaching, and you should make the most of that. And the most important thing you should do is, if you're a conservative, or you think you're a conservative, or you wish to conserve something and to be truly liberating, is to educate yourself and to learn about the good, the true, and the beautiful. Those are the high things, and that's what makes life worth living. That's why you're a conservative. That's what we wish to conserve. And the best thing you can do is have a good formation and understand and know those things, because then you can have those fights. But if you don't know those things, you won't be in a position to do so. That's the most important thing. Get the most out of your college education. And if you're not at a good college, come to Hillsdale or take an online course. There are places where you can learn this. But
I want to
good education.
Thank all the panelists for being on the panel today, and I guess I want to thank all the students out there that attended CPAC. And I would challenge all of you guys to try to go back and make a difference on your campus so we can have a panel like this next year talking about all the victories you've already accomplished in 1 year in your campus. Thank you.